Let's play Omega 5. This is a side-scrolling shooter by Hudsonsoft. One of my favorites ever, actually, because of the big, colorful characters and enemies. There you see the main four characters, Ruby, Sensei, Tempest, and RAD. The fifth person of the Omega 5 is a little dog that accompanies Sensei, but he's not playable on his own. Anyway, this is there's 4 stages overall. This is stage 1. So I'm playing with Ruby first. The first 2 characters you have available are Ruby and Tempest. When you beat the game with them, you open up the other 2. There's kind of a lot going on in this game. It seems simple at first, but basically, first thing you'll see those little pink triangles you get for defeating enemies. As you pick those up, they increase your score. They also slowly increase your multiplier, and once you have enough of them, you get a defensive energy ball that rotates around your character. It can stop some bullets. It can also do damage if you get it close enough to enemies. You can also optionally detonate it and use it as a screen clearing bomb. Right now I don't have any yet, but if you look over my health meter at the bottom left, you see 3 empty triangles. When you fill up each one of those with the pink ones, that's when you get an energy ball. On top of that, your multiplier goes up to x10 on regular difficulty, and it can go up even higher in plus mode, but in that mode, it's one hit kills you, whereas regular mode, you actually have a health bar that you can replenish with pickups. On top of that, each character has 3 different weapon types, A, B, and C, and each of those weapons has 3 power levels, and you increase that by picking up the same type. Like if you're type A, which is usually red, it's like a fire type, and you pick up another type A, that'll go to the next power up, whereas if you pick up a B or C, it just changes to that power without going up. So part of the strategy for each level is trying to get to the 3rd level of weapons as soon as you can before picking the one you want to use. So you gotta learn which order they come in. Generally, on each character, between the 3 weapons, there's one that has the highest direct damage DPS, there's one that has the best area effect or crowd control, and then the other weapon tends to go kind of in the middle, depending on what power level it's at. Right now with Ruby, I'm using type B, which I call her cutting laser. It reflects off hard surfaces, like you see, and once you get to type 3, you have 2 beams. So it's really cool for doing trick shots, and it actually has pretty good sustained damage too. Each character also has a specialty. Ruby's is that anchor thing that you see following her. The tip of it can absorb bullets so they can't hit you, and if you lock it onto enemies, it does constant damage. However, you also have to aim generally in the direction that the anchor is if it's locked onto something. The other character, RAD, she also has an anchor. She moves faster than Ruby, but her gun turns slower. However, she can also aim independently of her anchor, so you can lock it onto one target for constant DPS and then still aim at other things. And besides that, she has the same type of weapons, whereas Tempest and Sensei have totally different weapon types. On top of that, you also have a move you can do where you kind of warp, and this gives you a lot of invincibility frames, but it also deals damage. And you want to use that basically if you know you're going to get hit, or you're in a situation with a lot of stuff on the screen, you can warp through it, and even though you take some damage, it's less damage than you would take getting hit. So that's kind of like if you're doing score runs, because I believe the warp also doesn't break your multiplier the same way taking damage does. Yeah, what else? Like I said, there's a lot here. There's also a special hidden technique Tempest can do. I think I'll show it on him, where you can grab bullets in his shield and then reflect them back. And this isn't explained anywhere in the game. It's just something you either have to figure out, or I got it because I was talking to someone else about the game and they told me. It was kind of a hidden thing. The other cool thing about this game is, like I said, the big colorful enemies. They have neat mini bosses and bosses. In this first level, the mini boss is that big mech that follows you, and I like how in the beginning you can see him in the background before he jumps to the foreground, and you have to kind of play and experiment to learn his hit patterns and that his wink point is his head. So with Ruby, he's pretty easy because you can lock that anchor onto his head and do a lot of damage in a short time to blow him up. And each level has certain mini bosses that if you kill them in time, you get a bonus points at the end called Bomber, and that's another thing you just kind of have to figure out by playing. Anyway, I don't want to talk too much over the game, but all that stuff's the basics. I'm going to do it in 2 parts. The first 2 levels with Ruby and Sensei, then the other 2 levels with Tempest and RAD, just because it was too long overall for the Xbox DVR. Apparently there's a 30-minute limit, and I was 40 seconds over that limit, even if I cut out the credits. So yeah. This is towards the end of the first level. Another cool little feature is, once you've beaten the game once, you can change the system voice to be either male or female, and I like that because they both have really strong accents of Japanese people speaking English, I like. And there's also a retro mode you can put on, that's basically just a filter that goes over it that kind of makes it look 16-bit, except obviously there's still too many colors. But what's cool is it also changes the music to be 16-bit music, and that actually sounds really awesome. If I do a 1 coin clear video later, I might do it in retro mode just so you can hear the music. Yeah, so here's the first boss, Vampire. This is a trick I learned watching the replays, is that instead of being outside the boss, you can go inside. And it's kind of a risk reward because it's harder to maneuver without getting hit, but you can also potentially destroy the boss much faster because you don't have to wait to get through the periods where you can't hit it. So I guess that's pretty much all I can say. I'll let the rest of this first video speak for itself. There we go, that's boss 1. It does this cool thing after you finish a boss. It brings up these little windows you'll see here that actually show parts of the level you were playing. And I thought that's a neat feature. At first I thought it was static, but after playing through the games a bunch of times I found that it's not static, it actually is dynamic. It's actually showing parts of your playthrough. Okay, this is going to be level 2 with Sensei.
Stage 2, the escalated invasion.
This is probably my favorite level in terms of the way it looks in the enemies. I'll warn you ahead of time, Sensei is a little bit annoying because with all of his melee hits, which are really powerful, he's constantly yelling stuff, as you can see. The other thing I forgot to mention, everyone's weapons in here also have like an alternate fire mode. I take it back, Rubies and RADs don't, but Sensei and Tempest, all 3 of their weapon types have alternate fire. Sensei's is he shoots out that dog. I forget the dog's name, it's something like Rekimaru. Anyway, he shoots the dog out and it locks on to a certain number of enemies on screen, and then instead of using his sword, Sensei starts throwing stuff, and that depends on what weapon type you have. A-type is he throws Hadoukens, you can see right there. B-type he throws Shurikens, I think it is, and C-type he throws Kunai. And I haven't figured out yet what the strengths or weaknesses of each of those are. They seem to be slightly different, but I'm not exactly sure how. Anyway, not much else to say, so I'll just let this play on. Yeah, I freaking love this game, and I played it. It's one of the few shooters I played enough to get to where I could 1 coin clear it, which is like clearing it on 1 life. Now, I haven't been able to clear it without getting hit, but then again, I haven't tried that much. I can usually get to the 3rd stage without getting hit at all if I'm really trying. Okay, there's the kunai. Another cool aspect of this game is a lot of the things in the enemy things in the levels, they kind of change depending on how you hit them. Like these things here, you can hit the weak point at top and they make them fall. You can hit the bottom ones to make them swing out and make the thing shoot in different directions, or you can just try to hit them at the top and make them fall off, or you can hit the thing itself to blow it up. And that depends on which character you're using, what weapon you're using, as to which of those strategies is better. That thing that just came out of the water, if you destroy the mech on top, the bottom thing falls back in the water and it shoots out these jellyfish enemies. Whereas if you just destroy the bottom thing, it all blows up at once and you get less points, but it's also less of a threat because it's not shooting out stuff. There's a lot of little elements like that in this game that are kind of like risk-reward. Do you want to get more points, get more hits, but risk more getting hit and losing your multiplier? So that's what makes it fun to kind of chase high scores. When this game was a little bit newer, there were a few weeks that I was actually #1 on the leaderboards, but that was only the weekly leaderboard, because on the all-time leaderboards, the guys are playing in ++ mode, which means you can't get hit at all, but your multiplier can go up to, I think, ×30 rather than ×10. So their scores are just exponentially higher than any I've gotten. But the cool thing is you can also download any of their replays, and that's kind of a neat way to learn some tricks, different ways to fight bosses. Like you see, the mini boss of this level is this big worm thing right here. and it takes a lot of hits. Every one of those scale things is a separate enemy, but if you beat it, you get that bomber award again. And I saw a replay where someone beat it the first time it comes out. I've never been able to do that. I've only been able to beat it the second time it comes out. Anyway, cool level, cool graphics, and I'll shut up now so you can actually see it and appreciate it.